A web of red veins cracked through his eyes, which had been open for who knows how long. It was possible his entire life up to this point had been a dream, and that he had spent the last 28 years kneeling here, in this crumbling barn, with his 2 aching baby blues fixed on this one vision. A crude etching of an ancient life, scratched and scorched into the wood boards before him. The charcoal rendering of the impossible creature stood as tall as the barn, with its features sketched flatly against the wall, like a hieroglyphic. It sprouted from an altar formed by a thick semicircle of candles on the dirt floor, its towering head reaching up into the rafters. The beast looked fierce and monstrous, like some terrible shadow visitor vividly remembered from a night terror. The air had grown heavy with its presence. The man could almost feel it breathing, as if the etching might peel itself away from the wood and into the world of the living. And if it did, what then? What would satiate such a beast? Meat? Blood? Grinding bones and shattered bodies? Screams of the retreating flock, or the fluttering heartbeat of hidden prey? It had teeth. It certainly did. The renderer had been absolutely sure of that detail. Kneeling before this ferocity was Jacob Donahue, naked as the day he was born, his arms outstretched, beckoning to be lifted like a toddler into imaginary flight. A wide, unabashed smile strained his lips while tears cut a path through the dirt on his cheeks. Jacob, who had long since abandoned his body, was only dimly aware when the heavy sliding door behind him squealed open. He heard the delicate, bird-like steps of the man in white as he approached, but only as a distant echo. It wasn't until the man's gaunt fingers wrapped around the muscle of Jacob's shoulder and danced across very specific chords of his sinew, like a skeleton tickling ivories, that he fell back into the world. Gradually, his arms dropped and his body became limp, heavy with himself. His stinging eyes blinked, first periodically, then in rapid succession. He was awakening from an expansive dream, one that had carried him far beyond the barn and into places, perhaps even worlds, unknown. He re-emerged from wherever he was with a single thought. I can fly. The exhilaration of hurtling through the air, tasting clouds, and teasing the very lightning while it chased him across the sky like a playful knot of electric snakes was intoxicating. Fly? No, not just fly. I can fucking soar. Jacob got to his feet and bowed to the man in white, whose face was forever hidden by the shadows trapped in his hood. Thank you, my generous collector. Jacob whispered his words. He could almost watch them vanish into the void concealed under the pure white cloak, never to return. Nothing ever did. This lesson Jacob learned within his first week at the camp when he was introduced to the man in white, or the collector, as he was more fondly regarded. Jacob then squeezed into a pair of ill-fitting jeans, stumbled down the aisle of makeshift pews, and out the giant barn door. Once the sun reached his skin, he leaned himself against the outside of the sanctuary, which now looked far too modest to contain such enormity. He attempted to gather his breath. There wasn't enough. He may have been standing on the ground, but a part of him was still flying. He tossed on his t-shirt, a relic from the 90s, adorned with an abrasive collage of tie-dye patterns that overlapped each other in an orgy of pastel and neon. He didn't mind, though. Everyone else around him wore similarly resurrected attire from decades ago, as if all the forgotten clothes of the dead had ended up here, with these people, in this place. There was a young woman with yellow hair so faint it looked like cotton, waiting patiently for her turn in the barn. Her face was no older than 20. She stood with her hands folded like a child, yet her wispy blonde hair suggested an aged wisdom. Jacob marched past her, turned his head and said, "He's waiting for you." "I know. I'm nervous." Her voice, too, was innocent yet weathered, hints to the screams it once endured.